My next guest is the owner of Hausmann Physical Therapy here in Norfolk. Jon, thanks for making time to be here today.
Glad to be here.
Good. I'm Zach Miller with my co-host Vance.
Thanks for coming, Jon.
And we are touching base with Jon Hausmann today. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
By the way.
Yeah.
What was it, a couple days ago? Are you a New
Yeah.
Year's baby? Yeah.
New Year's baby. Yeah.
How was that?
Everybody asked, did your parents get the gifts and all that stuff? And my mom said, really, no. I mean, it was a long time. It was 51 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think the general tone was like, just like being angry because you missed a year of deductions. So I think it was like, what are you celebrating for? Like,
That's funny.
like you were 11 hours away from being able to deduct. Now you gotta feed this little turd for a year.
For a whole year before you can deduct anything.
Yeah,
That's kind of funny.
And I was the youngest of 5 by a long way. So there's 9 years difference between myself.
Oh, so you were just getting scraps anyway. It wasn't like
Pretty
they were-
much, yeah. So I was like an only child, really.
Yeah.
I mean, my next closest sibling was 9 years older than me.
Wow.
They all pretty much hated me because I was spoiled. My parents were exhausted by that time. I got away with so much junk.
You could do whatever you wanted to do.
Pretty much, yeah. They just didn't care a lot. So yeah,
That's crazy. I never heard the deduction side of it. Whereas I was on the 30th. I was born on the 30th. So
golden child.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't. My issue is my parents and grandparents were really good about keeping Christmas and my birthday kind of different.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I remember everything's all at once. So
Sure.
you're always so excited.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd make yourself so excited you get sick when
Yeah.
I was a kid, basically.
Right.
That's kind of
Well, happy birthday to you.
Yeah. Well, yours was closer. So
I don't want to miss out though.
So going back to kind of, I kind of forget. I think I probably knew this already, but like, let's start from the beginning. A little background on you. Where did you grow up?
Bonesteel, South Dakota.
Oh, where's that at?
So do you know where Butte, Nebraska is?
Yep.
Just across the border, 9 miles from Butte, south central part of the state, tiny little town, about they're down to around 200 people now.
Oh, really?
Kind of hovered around 300 when I was growing up. Graduated in a class of 12. Yeah, tiny little town.
it's a huge class.
It is.
Yeah.
I knew everybody in my class.
Yeah, you can name everybody else.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
good.
But yeah, I grew up in just tiny little town, South Dakota, farming town. Lots of agriculture, obviously, but Missouri River is just 8 miles from my house. So
That was fun.
had no idea how good, walleye fishing, pheasant, deer, turkey hunting. It's like, you just grew up
It
doing
was just
that.
second nature for you.
Really?
So, like,
I
you
mean,
just
yeah, you
take
just,
it for granted.
You do. And then you move away and go, oh, I had it pretty good.
I had this in my backyard.
Now
Now
it's
it's gone.
Yeah.
Now I got to drive for it.
Right. And I got to pay for it.
Right? Yeah, that's that too.
Yeah. That's getting to be that way.
Yeah.
So, grew up there.
Did you play sports there?
Yep. Yeah, you just sort of do. I mean, you do everything.
Well, so what kind of, I guess, with the class of 12, obviously, was it eight-man football?
So 9 men in South Dakota.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were class 9. I didn't remember if they had A and B back then. I think they did. So we were 9B. And yeah, played football, played basketball a few years, ran track. I was in the band, in the choir, did play. I mean, everybody just
Kinda
did
had
everything.
to, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody just did everything. I played sports.
Kind of helps your background too, kind of getting a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
I kind of did that too. I got out of band in my senior year, but I was in band and did some drama stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole small town thing. I mean, there's definitely some knocks to small town. You kind of get a little bit insulated to what reality really is,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you get
Get a lot of experience doing everything.
absolutely, and you do it on a certain level. I mean, it's just sort of, it doesn't have to be great. You're just sort of doing it and having fun doing it.
Right.
There's always the competition factor. You're always wanting to compete. I mean, you always want to do the best, but you don't have to be great at everything. You just you learn everything.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
and
kind of learning life skills, doing everything.
And, you don't try out for the football team. And I mean,
just make
I
it.
was
yeah.
that way. I mean, I was at C2 in Battle Creek or
Okay.
C1 when I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really try out. You try out for starting or whatever,
Yeah.
but that's about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like
you're
who
on
can
the
kick
team.
the ball or-
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the classic, like, find somebody to fill a role.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have a left guard.
Right.
Right. So
whether they're 120 pounds.
Exactly. So the kid that played center on our football team was my best friend through most of high school, and he weighed 155 pounds.
Oof.
But literally was one of the best centers I still have ever seen, just because he
leverage and everything.
And he was smart, and he knew how to use his body, and he was pretty quick for a center.
Right.
So, and he would go up against some pretty good sized kids, but he'd get in the way. That's really all you got to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you just sort of, different kids fill different roles, and the same thing in all the sports. You don't have, look at little Johnny. He's going to be the, point guard someday. Like, well, he's going to play basketball and whatever.
Right.
We'll figure out what we're doing with our offense, defense, depending on, who's out and who do we have, what do the numbers look like. So
right. So where did you end up going to college then?
So I went to Dakota Wesleyan University in Mitchell, South Dakota, home of the world's only corn palace. As if
never been.
Right? Yeah,
I've never been there.
I'm going to tell you.
I've driven by a lot.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with Mitchell, but I've never
Probably
actually gone to the corn palace.
I-90, just keep going, right?
Just
do I need to put it on the bucket list or no?
There's a farm show in Mitchell every year that I've been to a lot.
Yeah.
So.
So the corn palace, I hate to ruin this for a lot of people. It's a gymnasium it's decorated with corn.
Yeah. Oh.
And it's kind of cool. I mean, they do murals on the outside, and they start in the summertime, and in the fall they have a corn palace festival. And so our big thing was we would drive down the main drag in Mitchell, and people would be like looking at the corn palace, and we'd roll down our window like, can you tell me where the corn palace is? And these people from all over the world, I mean, they're disappointed anyway. So they're like half angry.
Right.
So they're looking at you like, it's right there.
It's right there.
Like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
That looks like the other building down the street.
Yeah, right. It's just decorated with corn. So that's what it is. I'm sorry. It's a gymnasium. They had a balloon museum there for a while. They've got like a creepy doll museum. I mean, I just picture like these people like driving.
They're thinking
across.
It's like the Taj Mahal.
Oh
of corn.
my gosh! Like this, we have to stop. I always kind of wish they would have worked it into one of the National Lampoon's Vacations.
Oh yeah,
like the biggest ball of twine and stuff like that. I wish they would have worked it into one of those movies. Like, hey, we're stopping at the Corn Palace, and just this.
So
driving
I-90, the Corn Palace is a big thing, but I think the crazier thing is the wall drug signs everywhere, and you're just thinking like, oh, we gotta go to wall drug at this point.
Yeah, so. I had two aunts who were nuns who lived out in the convent in Rapid City. So once a summer, we'd make the trek out to Rapid City. But I think it was because I was the youngest and my parents had gotten sucked into it before. Like, we never stopped at Wall Drug, ever.
Because they did with your older siblings.
Yeah, and I was like, this is an absolute waste of time. And I was like, why don't we? Because you see, there's signs everywhere.
There's a sign
why don't we
mile.
go to Wall Drug? And they would really never answer me. Just give you like, and then you just keep driving. So we never did. Like, we would do the Mount Rushmore and stuff like that, just because you kind of have to, right? Yeah. But we never did like reptile gardens, or if it costs money,
you weren't
there's
going.
A pretty good chance we weren't going. Like, we got to pay for it yourself kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Mount Rushmore used to be, the parking was even free at Mount Rushmore when I was growing up.
It's not anymore?
Not the close stuff. Like you.
So I haven't been there. It'd have been in the 90s. I think we went on a family vacation there.
I've never been there either. Not yet. I plan to.
Tell you what, the Black Hills are worth it. I mean,
it's cool.
That. Yeah, it is cool, and so it's close.
We did that. We did do the reptile gardens, I think. We did there's like a state park you can drive through and see a bunch of animals, right?
Yep, Custer State Park.
I think we did that, and then we did. Actually, my favorite was probably Wind Cave National Park. We did that. That was really awesome.
Yeah. So part of it, and this is a total parent thing, but we never went to reptile gardens because my mom's terrified of snakes, and we never did a cave thing because she's scared of caves.
Right.
Yeah.
So if mom is not on board,
Nobody's
Then
going.
you're not
it
doing it.
doesn't matter how much the kids jump up and down and beg. Like mom's like, screw you. I'm not
I ain't
going into
in
a
the ground.
cave. Cripes. Then, and then when those Chilean miners got trapped, she's like, see?
Oh, right. You see?
This is why we didn't do caves.
That's funny. So Dakota Westland.
Yep.
So that's a decent sized school, right?
Yeah,
too?
actually, it's pretty small. It was
Is it?
about 700. Yeah. So NAIA Division II. I actually played football there.
What's their colors? 'Cause I think I
Blue and white.
blue and
Yeah.
white. Not
Yeah.
not what I was thinking of then.
So yeah, I went there. I played football. I enjoyed it. It was good. Small school, really small, hour and a half from home. When I went to school, my initial plan was to go into PT school. Then I got about halfway through and I'm like, this is pretty competitive. I probably should have a backup plan. So
Yeah.
that's when I started athletic training education at that point, just as kind of something to fall back on. And then I didn't get into PT school initially. So that's when got my degree as an athletic trainer. And I was going to go to grad school. I was all set to go to grad school. And then the job came open in Norfolk. Funny thing, I grew up 2 hours from Norfolk. I'd never been here in my life.
Really?
Never been to Norfolk. I knew kind of where it was, but never been here. So the very first time I came here is when I applied for a job. And it was when there was 2 separate hospitals.
Yeah.
So it was for the group that was providing service at Sisters Hospital. They offered me a job, and then I'm like, so I was either going to go to Mankato, Minnesota, and do some graduate work there, or come down here and start working. And decided to come down and start working. And
What year was that?
96, the
Okay.
fall of 96 was when we moved down, and we had gotten married in June.
You guys meet in college?
Yep. I played football with her brother. She's a couple years younger than I am. Got married in 96, moved down here and weren't Nebraska fans, didn't really think a whole lot of Nebraska. We're like, we'll live here a couple of years. We'll move right back up to South Dakota. So
Right.
that's 27 years later. And,
Right.
and here we
Still here.
are. Yeah.
How much of a difference is there between athletic training and physical training?
I was going to say that too. Can you
Yeah.
explain for the audience, kind of explain?
Sure. Yeah. So athletic trainers, probably the biggest difference is the scope of practice. So athletic trainers, you have a wider skill set because you're doing, the initial like emergency care,
So like EMT type
prevention.
stuff.
Yeah. So you have that, and then you're kind of dabbling in the rehab part of it. Now, there are some situations where an athletic trainer might work at a bigger university and stuff, and all they're doing is rehab. So they're kind of functioning as a physical therapist. But a physical therapist, then their scope really drills down on the rehab part of it. So you're
More targeted.
Yeah. And you have a broader range, whereas athletic trainers obviously are going to work with an athletic or active population. Physical therapists anywhere from birth to 90 some years old. So the probably a broader scope for physical therapists in the sense that from a rehab standpoint, and you're not so spread out as far as athletic training and what an athletic trainer does.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
A lot of people probably don't remember Sisters Hospital, actually. Well,
Yeah,
I
it's been a
grew
long-
up a half a block from it, so I've been there a few times. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what 97 or 98 is when it merged and Faith Regional started.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually worked for Faith Regional as an athletic trainer for 3 years.
I didn't realize you went back that far.
Mm-hmm. And then I worked for the Sports Medicine Center out of Omaha. I covered I covered Norfolk Catholic initially when I moved to town. And then when I worked for Sports Medicine Center, then I covered the community college and some area high schools. And then worked for Heartland Physical Therapy as an athletic trainer and covered Norfolk High. And I think that's where our paths crossed.
That's where our paths did cross.
Yeah.
Correct.
Zach was never hurt though.
Never
Ever.
once. We'll get into that. It's in here. We'll get into that. So going back a little bit, what you said in high school, you kind of already decided you wanted to go down this path. What kind of made you decide?
Yeah, when I was 14, I tore my ACL playing football.
Oh,
And sort of had kind of pseudo physical therapy. I mean, you're out in Bonesteel, South Dakota, so the doctor is 30 miles away.
right.
So we really didn't. The physical therapy at that point was I had my knee scoped a couple times. They never did repair it. I don't have an ACL on my right knee. And so we would just meet with a physical therapist when we went to Sioux Falls to meet with the orthopedic surgeon. I always thought it was kind of cool. And so I kind of thought full disclosure, I didn't really know a whole lot about physical therapy other than that little bit that I saw there, but I thought it was kind of cool. Thought it was neat and something that I would like to do. And
you enjoy sports, obviously. You played, and you played in college, and
yeah. And my family all enjoys sports, so we were around it all the time. And you kind of talked about before. It's when you're in a small town, it's just competition, right? I mean, it's all the way from your football season and basketball and everybody. It's the thing to do,
right?
Like people go to football games. What else are you going to do?
Yeah.
You go to the basketball game because that's everybody goes to the gym, goes to the basketball games.
Right.
Track and baseball, baseball so you played baseball in the summer. It was just like Legion stuff.
Right.
But it was what you did. And
all year long.
Yeah. And very few people didn't.
Did you ever have any aspirations to be like a college athletic trainer before you finished the physical therapy portion? Or?
Yeah. So, and that's kind of where that decision way back in 96 to either go on to grad school.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a grad assistantship all set up in Mankato, Minnesota. And it was through Mankato State, and I was going to help out there at that college, get my master's degree in, I think it was probably going to be kinesiology or something like that, and then work at Mankato State. And then also there was a high school hockey team in Mankato that I would have worked with too.
That would have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
Something different.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I wasn't ever exposed to hockey at all.
Right.
So that would have been kind of that path. And that was the usual path back then for if you're an athletic trainer. There wasn't a whole lot of high school athletic trainers back then. They would, it was just kind of getting started in the early 90s. And so the usual path was you would get your graduate, you'd get your graduate degree, get your master's. You'd probably go on with a college somewhere. You would be a head trainer or maybe an assistant trainer, work your way up or work your way through, and the path to like professional sports, that's where you kind of realize too, it's really about kind of the same thing, the same way you would work through the system as an athlete is you start very low and you do the grunt work and then you would, who do you know?
Right.
Who can you get associated with that would give you a shot to work with a bigger school and then on to professional stuff. So,
and you put in the big amount of time, like you're putting in time that you're not really getting paid for probably.
Yeah.
Too.
And it's brutal. It's brutal. I was at an athletic training conference once and there was a guy he took we were going back to the airport and he was in the shuttle with us and gosh, I'll forget the year, but shoot, he was, he worked for, I think he had worked for the Patriots the year before, but it was like a 6-month thing. And a lot of times that's how that would start. Like they would just hire on just whoever, but he's like, I'll never do it again. He said,
really?
Because, it was horrible. He's like, you're there from 6 a.m. till midnight. You're doing all the grunt work. You are, and
taping and doing all that.
And you just, unless you're the head guy, you're just doing crappy work.
Getting all the heating pads ready.
Yeah. And it's just, and he said it's every day. Yeah. He's like, from the time training camp starts until the last game. And so the Patriots had won the Super Bowl that year. So he was like, I didn't go to Christmas. I didn't do it. Like players would have time off, but we never got time off.
Wow.
And he said,
Because there was always somebody in the facility.
somebody
'cause
needs
it's always
something.
open
Or there's
to the
more
players,
to do.
right? Yeah.
There's more. And that's kind of the administrative thing that a lot of people don't see on the athletic training side. I mean, I think, and honestly, I think, for people who are thinking about going into athletic training, and that was the allure for me, the allure of sport. I love the competition, love being there, but there's so much behind the scenes stuff that takes place. I mean, even just at Norfolk High, it's a lot to take care of.
You need to be there every practice
You
early.
do.
Yeah.
You do. So you're kind of working when everybody else is playing. So is that trade-off enough that you're around those sports all the time? You're around that competition. You feel like you're part of it. Is that worth, getting home at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night and missing your family and that kind of stuff? So there's some trade-off there that has to happen from an athletic training standpoint.
And the traveling too, because you traveled too. Yeah.
Yeah. Travel with football, and if I could travel with basketball, I traveled with them. So
That was a lot too, though.
and basketball season was the worst at Norfolk High just because they shared the gym, right? So a lot of the bigger schools, there's 2 gyms. Your practice was only going to go from after school till 6 o'clock. Well, either your boys team or your girls team was coming in at 6 or 6:30 and then practicing late. So you really never got home before.
I never thought about that. Yeah, we
before 9:30 or 10.
have double practices, and
Yeah.
you'd be there,
You're
the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there from 2 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon until, sometimes 9:30, 10 o'clock at night.
That's crazy. You never we talk about this a lot on the podcast. How you always, people just think things get done.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, they just get done.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing it. It just happens.
Just
Right.
happened.
And then you think about that, and it's like, yeah, you were there the whole time getting shit done.
Yeah. And so now, I think they only have one there now for quite a while after I left, and they had 2 athletic trainers there, because that's the other thing, that if you count up the varsity sports at Norfolk High, there's 19 varsity sports at Norfolk High.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about.
If you think, I mean, because you have to sit down and count them all. So on some level, you have some interaction with all of them.
Right.
Like tennis and stuff, maybe not as much, but you have to be available, and
Stuff
if the coach calls, you still need to be available. So one person handling 19 varsity sports is
a lot.
It's a lot.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You had some assistants there though too, I think, right?
I had some students that helped out a little bit here and there. Yeah. Yep.
Did they offer that as like an internship style, or like any credits or anything to help them into college?
Yeah, they didn't then, and that was always kind of something I thought would be a good thing. It was a kind of an introduction into going into, even if it was just a medical field or nursing or something, I think it would have been a good way to kind of get some exposure. But it was, and it's also then the question then is it adds another layer, right? So another thing that you have to monitor,
Right.
Yeah.
you have to keep track of. And that was one of the things that I kind of noticed in that situation, because it was such a big school, and it is such a big school, that there's only so many hours in the day, and having to take care of all of those little things, you really become cautious about throwing more stuff on you, because I'm a big believer in the enemy of great is good.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do things great, then you have to laser in and do things great, because
Don't just half-ass it or just get by.
There's things that you're going to do, and if you're only doing them just well enough to get by, then that's the opposite of great in my mind.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't do any kind of like internship type stuff, because there were a few students that I think were even traveling with the team, at least when I was playing.
Yeah, and especially football, we usually have 3 or 4 students that would go along, which was super helpful.
Very, because they would do the taping. You wouldn't have to worry about some of that stuff. Yeah, that's really cool.
We kind of talk about like that's a real world experience too, different than like classroom experience, that type of stuff too. So that's kind of a good thing to, if that's what you want to go do, you're hitting the ground running.
Yeah.
You're already getting that built into you, even if you're not. It's an internship, even if it's not really called that, but it's a good thing.
It is.
Doing some.
You're very
stuff
good
like
at
that.
explaining stuff too. I don't know if you know that about yourself, but you
I
probably
might
taught them very well.
over-explaining.
No,
I might be the
wouldn't think
definition of mansplaining.
that. I don't know about that.
I think mansplaining is like underdoing it, isn't it?
No, is
Isn't
it?
that what they
No,
say?
it's over-explaining. It's over-explaining
mansplaining?
things that the person probably already knows is what mansplaining is.
Oh, I see.
And I think it's usually like,
Common knowledge stuff.
and it's kind of sexist. It's called mansplaining because like a man will over-explain something to a woman. She just rolls her eyes like, I totally know this.
Right.
And you're just trying to look like you're really smart.
It's like me trying to tell John how to turn the light switch on.
There you
That's
go.
mansplaining in detail. Take your finger, put it below it, flip it up. No, that's mansplaining.
Okay.
Well, you played a big part in my high school athletic career. So you got me through quite a few concussions.
There you go.
You did. I don't know. I can't even remember how many there were. But
I've had a lot.
well, you got me through quite a few of them.
You
Worked
know,
my ass off to get back, and
Yeah. And Angie, my wife, was asking, as I was getting ready to come in tonight, she's like, well, she knows who you are. Like, how do you know Zach? And I'm like, well, he was an athlete, which that's a lot of our conversations end up that way. Like, hey, they were an athlete when they were in high school. Kind of explained where you're at now and how you got, I think I explained it well, how you got to where you're at. But, and there are certain ones that you remember.
yeah,
And I think part of the reason I remember you is because not just in high school, but after high school, you always did a good job of like connecting.
yeah,
Right. And I think there's value in that. Some of the things I try to teach my kids is that, just connection.
right,
And you don't have to be best friends with somebody, but when you have that connection, acknowledge the connection, try to keep track of people. And so I think you've always done a good job of just staying kind of front of mind in that way.
Oh, I appreciate always reaching out back.
Yeah.
Because I reached out to you 2 years after I graduated because I was going to go down to Kearney and try to try out for the basketball team, and I asked you for some workout tips and things, and that was fun too. And you let me. We sat down at your house and you explained a whole bunch of stuff to me. I think you were just about to go get some more schooling, I think, at that time too, but
Okay.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Yeah.
But going back to the concussions, at the time, I know I didn't want to sit out. Obviously, wanted to get back in the game, but I do appreciate now where I'm at, you doing that,
Yeah.
because concussions are a big thing.
Well, and that was, gosh, I mean, that even evolved quite a bit while I was at Norfolk High.
But we got new helmets while I was there.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a pretty significant concussion incident, I think my first year there. And, there was really not there was a protocol, but it was more of a kind of a skeleton protocol. Like, these are some things you should watch out for. But it really, it evolved quite a bit while I was there, and kind of that the long-term effects really started to become more and more known about that time. So that would have been, when did you graduate high school?
06.
06. Goodness gracious, I'm old. So, early, it was about that time where a lot of the research and a lot of when I would go to athletic training conferences, there was a lot of emphasis on that. And, even athletic training kind of had an old school kind of rub some dirt on it kind of attitude.
Oh yeah.
And, so you saw some of these old athletic trainers, and what they knew how to do was tape something so tight that you couldn't feel it, and then you're fine.
Right.
I don't care if the bone's sticking out. If we cut the blood off to that appendage, you can go back in. I mean, old school athletic training is smelling salts and that kind of stuff. So you, like at these education seminars, you would almost see kind of this old guard, like, oh, we never did that when I was, I was at Kansas, when I was the head trainer.
We had leather helmets back then. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right. So you kind of saw this a little bit of like, it was rebellious to think that you were gonna make people sit out.
Right.
So I felt that firsthand. My doctor made me quit all sports, all contact sports, my sophomore year, which would have been 2001. I had a concussion in a football game, and he said I could play, but I'd have to waive all insurance basically. And yeah, that didn't go over great in a small town. I was one of the first ones I definitely was the first one in Battle Creek that ever had to do that.
Wow.
So that went over real good.
Yeah,
but,
went over like a turd in a punch bowl.
So yeah, no, I felt that, and it is. But my dad talks about it all the time because my mom and dad were in the room when Dr. Adams, I think, was the guy that he's the one that told me he was. I think he was a former neurologist for the Bears or something. Or
yeah, he's done some. He's done some pro work. Yeah.
I think that's who it was. Dr. Adams, and he told my parents, I was in the room, he goes, I can count on one hand the amount of people I said can never play football again, and your son's one of them.
You're one of them.
And I thought, I don't give a shit, let me play.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm fine, and I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah.
I still get issues. I get on a Ferris wheel, I get dizzy, and so I've had a ton of them. Me and him, we've talked about it a lot.
We talk about it a lot because
a ton of them.
I have the short-term memory loss a little bit sometimes, and there's some parts of my high school career that I can't recollect now. But I just going back to the helmets. I think we only got 10 of them in that 05 to 06 season.
Yep.
See, there was none of those. The condom helmets.
Whatever you want to call them. They were the
rubber ones on the top. Shortly after I left.
Did you have one of those?
I did not. They got one like 2 years after. I started that like a year after I left. I was still like a senior in 04.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about those is after several years of using those, they quit because they actually figured out it made it worse.
Yeah. Oh. So that was like the first version of it, right? I think that rubber.
Yep.
It was a soft sided on the outside.
Yep. Kelso, was it Nick Kelso for the Bills wore one?
Yeah, I think so.
Big. It was looked like a mushroom.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, we had those. A couple of guys had those when they had concussions. This was like a year or two after I was even done with football.
Ours were they were brand new helmets. They had some kind of, I don't remember what was. There was something different about the inside. They were like the Rydell. They kind of looked kind of cool. They were like the
kind of a space age kind of thing.
Yeah.
It came like the face mask came down. It kind of came around the jaw a little bit.
It
like
didn't
in
have
the front.
holes. They were more like almost like flames.
It was a little
bit.
elongated, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And only us, I think 5 of us on defense got them, and 5 on the offense was all that got them.
Yeah, because they're
if you'd had them before, had concussions before,
me,
that's who got them. Is whoever had concussions?
It was I think that was part of it, but it was also I think the quarterback got one, which I thought was kind of weird. The running back got one, the fullback got one.
Let's be honest, the quarterback gets everything.
I know. And then it was on the defense. It was the guys that usually either had concussions or hit the hardest.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I remember sitting down with the coaches and kind of trying to pinpoint who we were going to give those helmets to.
Right. I'm sure it was,
or who they were going to give the
I'm
helmets
sure it was
to.
a tough decision.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, honestly, it's one of those like, could we do it for everybody?
Yeah.
Well, budget didn't allow that, so just trying to identify who would it help the most.
Yeah.
So.
And they were good. I think I guess I wouldn't know. Do they have mostly all those helmets now?
I think they've really. It's kind of like technology has evolved.
Gotten cheaper.
Yeah, there's a lot of things out there. I don't know if you've noticed. College and pro games, those guys that have those, it's a hard plastic piece that goes, that's for concussions.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what it does is, if I read it right and I can remember correctly, because I've had a few concussions, it basically it slows the blood flow. If there's a concussive event, it slows down the swelling in the brain, basically, because it controls the amount of blood that's allowed to circulate.
Gotcha.
So, and I think early research was really positive on those kind of things. It was silly, right? Like this little plastic thing you wear in your neck. It helps with concussions. But, they've done things like helmets, mouthpieces, all sorts of things that they've tried to do to prevent it. And I think they're probably as close as they're going to get to really being able to prevent them with the changes that they've made in the game and penalties for, head to head, that kind of stuff.
It's weird to me. I only had one in football.
Really?
I was hospitalized like 15-ish times for them, but they're all younger to older. I mean, my first one was probably in 3rd or 4th grade playing recess out on the asphalt. We're playing soccer on the asphalt back of the head. That was my very first. I remember that one as my first one. Ran into a door, running to lunch, basketball in PE, fell off of 4-wheelers, the worst one because I lost a full day's. To this day, I can't remember driving the 4-wheeler.
Wow.
I remember halftime of the football game. I was in the tractor, and I know that was at noon. and I woke up at noon the next day. I don't remember anything after that, but
my gosh.
This happened at like 4:00 in the afternoon. Apparently,
wow,
is when I fell off the 4-wheeler.
Wow,
and I don't to this day. I don't remember in the 4-wheeler. I don't remember anything. I was conscious. They said I was wobbly or weird, but I was conscious. I don't remember anything. So that's scary, is losing a full day to me. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But I only had one in football, and I don't even remember it happening. I remember I went to the locker room to change. I never got out of my pads because I knew I had a concussion. I felt it. When I drove home, I grew up 1.5 miles from home. Drove my car. I stopped 3 times in the 1.5 miles to puke out the side of my car. Walked in the door and told my mom, "Hey, I got a concussion." By this time, it was like the 10th time or whatever. Oh, we got to go to the hospital. I said, "No, I was young and dumb." And I said, "No, they're just going to put me in the CAT scan and yell at me," because I always hated the CAT scan because I was nauseous and I'm moving and they're yelling at me for moving and I hated it. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Finally, I think we ended up going, I don't remember, but I'm just like, I remember sitting at the door like, no, I'm not fucking going. Just still wearing my cleats, my football pants, and
probably wiping the puke off your chin. Right? But it sounds like, your cards were dealt way before you ever
super young. It wasn't football
or sport in general.
Well, I suppose the PE soccer sport, or like playing around, like recess sports,
but not the way that's I would say non-traditional. Right?
Correct.
I mean, like most people think like.
Right.
I had a concussion in junior high football. I had a concussion in sophomore in football, and then they told me I had to quit. So no, you were kind of doomed to start.
Yeah, I wasn't. I wasn't ever going to succeed. And then at that time, I remember him saying, because I said, well, and I had never really played. I played like elementary basketball, but I didn't play organized basketball after that. And I said, well, what can I play basketball? He said, no, you're absolutely not playing basketball, even over football, because you haven't. At that time, he said that'd be worse because I didn't have any head protection at that time. But
wearing a football helmet during a basketball game
probably wouldn't be ideal.
Yeah. Get all the waivers you want. Right? He's got a soft melon. We got to do what we can to help him out.
Yeah, I only went to the hospital once, but it wasn't anything crazy. After, I think it was Lincoln Northeast or Lincoln North Star, or one of those two. Got landed on by a 450-pound lineman.
Was that here?
It was in Lincoln.
I think I remember that.
Yeah. My head bounced off he ran me over and he landed on my head.
Were we at Lincoln High, Lincoln High Stadium?
I think so.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I think it was like was it after the game we decided to?
It was after the game, but you pulled me out. Mm-hmm. So one other player was like, you might need to get out of the game, because there was 2 plays where I was like, I couldn't make the calls coming in from the sideline, and then finally I think you had seen me like stumble twice before the play started, and I think you pulled me out.
Yeah, I kind of remember that. I kind of remember I think we were standing out by the buses even, maybe.
Yeah.
And standing there with your parents, and I'm like, you need to go now.
Yeah.
And
they forced me to stay awake all the way home.
Mm-hmm. It's miserable. That was the worst thing I hated growing up. Every time I had a concussion, they're like, no, you got to get up. You got to get up.
And you're not supposed to take anything.
Yeah. Right.
You're not.
Your head hurts. You want to puke. My worst was the nauseous. Just the puking was the worst for me. Hated it.
I never had the nausea. My eyes would get. I started to get. I still got them to this day. Like the little. What are those called?
Floaters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I get those too. I just thought that was normal.
No, that's from head injuries, right?
Sort of. Yeah. There's different. I
call my little worms that I see.
It's actually a blood vessel that is formed when you're an embryo. Gets knocked loose. But different reasons. Head trauma definitely can.
I see those. Like, that's a daily occurrence for me.
Like, I see him, but then there's times where I don't. I'm like, where'd it go?
Right. It's because you're not focusing on it. Looking to find it.
Who took my floaters?
Yeah, that's funny.
I've never really had, like, any-time I had the concussion, the light sensitivity never bothered me, because a lot of people are like, be in the dark. Mm-hmm. I never had problems with that. Like, it was never that issue. It was just a massive headache. nauseousness, and like the nauseousness still hits. Like I'll get on a Ferris wheel and I can get nauseous.
Yeah. That's a crazy thing. I mean, but that's the brain.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
and that's the hard part about concussions, the brain, trying to understand the brain. And it's just so highly variable. So, and that was the problem with trying to set protocol, is like there's so many times it wouldn't check all the boxes. Like, oh, well, he doesn't check all the boxes, he can go back in.
Right.
Like, well, yeah, but he doesn't know where he's at. Well, but yeah, that's just that's one of the 3 boxes.
That's like the movie Varsity Blues.
Yeah.
Billy Bob, how many fingers? It can't be how many fingers. It can be yes or no question. Billy Bob, man's holding some fingers. Yes.
That's funny.
I had there was a and this is just kind of goes back to the misconception of what concussion was. And this was again early on. It was a junior varsity kid that played JV and a little bit of varsity. Well, gets a concussion during the JV game, which was probably Monday. So at that point, I held him out, and I was holding him out that week. Well, the kid's dad calls me and is like, he's mad. And he's like, he needs to be able to play on Friday. I'm like, dude, he plays like 6 plays.
Right.
I mean, come on. I said, well, you got a concussion. He did not get a concussion. So I'm going through the symptoms. I'm like, this is what the symptoms are. He goes, he didn't get a concussion. He got his bell rung.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, yes.
Oh, yeah. Got me there, buddy.
Yeah,
Got me there.
They're just going to change the name of it.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that dad worked in the medical profession too.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes it even worse.
Right. So I'm like, well, you can say what you want, but your kid's not playing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. That one, and that's a man thing. I think a masculine thing.
Bell rung.
Yeah. It's just it's hard to see the brain, and people don't understand. Like if you haven't had it or whatever, it's hard to. Well, you don't have a broken leg, so why can't you go? I don't see why you can't do it, and it's a serious thing.
Well, and I know, going back to when I played, we were playing at Dakota State, and I played defensive back, and I was just pursuing a play, and this was in the first half, pursuing the play, and a guy, lineman comes and just clocks me, and that was helmet to helmet. I mean, he dumped me, and I'm like, didn't know where I was. And for the rest of the first half, I couldn't see out of my right eye.
Holy shit.
But I told nobody.
Wow.
Because I was scared. Right. I didn't want to get taken out and
be called weak or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And so it's, that's that kind of that machismo, it almost became a badge of honor. Like, I've had concussions before. Well,
I couldn't see out of my right eye and still played.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
I find and there's honestly days, I think I've told Zach before, like it kind of worries me, like in the future. Like it's like, there's times where like I can't, and like he talked about short term, but it's times where I can just tell there's a little bit of a lag, and it's like, oh man, I'd never had this.
Yeah.
This is a little different.
Yeah. Well, you look at like NFL wise, all these guys with CTE and they're doing autopsies on their brains and finding these things, and those guys are begging people to help them.
Yeah.
And that just got swept under the rug for a long enough time, and I think it came to the surface enough, like it forced their hand. They had to do something.
A couple big name guys shooting themselves in the chest was a big call for help at that point.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think they've done enough changes through the pros down and even into high school?
I think they're probably, like I said, as far as technology and things, they're in a pretty good place. I mean, you still see, just last week, gosh dang, was it a pro game? But you could tell the guy, he was starting to have involuntary movements of his arms. So you still see it. And I think about it way differently than I used to. I used to be like, whoa, that was awesome. And it's like, oh, no.
Well, he's not okay.
No, he's not okay. And he might not ever be okay.
Right.
I like the hits. It's part of the game. The big hits. It's part of the game. And I don't think you'll ever get it all the way out unless you get rid of the game.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
You can make it the best you can.
Yep.
But on the professional side of it, you're paid for a reason.
Yeah.
In a way. You're taking that risk.
Yeah. And I think that they're at least trending in the right direction. I think they've done and what they can at this point. And then, it's under such a microscope now.
Yeah.
They'll continue to look at it. They'll never eliminate football. I mean, never.
Too much money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But they'll continue to look at it and gather their data and decide, is this as safe as we can make it, without really starting
without ruining the game.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, you take too many penalties or too many hits or too many because it's just impossible to. You see these targeting calls that are called. It's like it's impossible to, if the running back is going down and the other guys already started. Like it is what it is. It's going to happen. Well, there's no way to stop.
They don't do anything to the offense, so the running back can literally lead with his head.
Yeah.
And then didn't get nothing called on him, and all the defender's trying to do is get lower, and then they end up hitting each other. And
So you mentioned like even going down to high school and little Pop Warner kind of stuff, and then some of it's education,
teaching how to tackle.
Yeah. I mean, you used to tell them, stick your head in there.
Now let's make sure your head's up and to the side, wherever it's got to be.
Let it fly to the side. A little bit of wrap them up, pursuit of the. You can still play really, really good defense.
Yep.
So it's turned into more of a coaching thing then too.
They've probably gotten rid of some of the drills we used to do too, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you guys ever
Oklahoma
do like
drills?
the Oklahoma?
No, the Oklahoma. There was one where they had us defenders. They would just give the guy the ball and let us just run at each other.
Well, that's Oklahoma was when you were both on your back and get up and
this was just us at a stand
and just straight
and one at an angle. And who can get by the other one?
Yeah.
I remember it was Philip Lee. Him and I did that, and both ended up with. I thought I dislocated my shoulder as the first stinger I'd ever had, and I thought I was like, my shoulder is out of socket. I am done. He did the same thing. We both there was a huge pop. Everybody looked, and then we were just both just like
the stinger thing brings a memory back up. I remember we had a player on our high school team. He came out, get out, like trying to rip his fucking pads and jersey. I was get it out, coach, get it out. It's a stinger, get it out. He thought it was a bee. It's like it's not a bee.
Wrong.
I got a stinger, get it out.
I'm allergic.
right.
I don't think that's what that means, buddy. But yeah, okay.
Well, thanks for indulging in our concussion.
Anytime.
Little rant there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So bringing it back to you here. Yep. Let's go from training being the athletic trainer at the high school.
Yep.
And getting into your practice.
Yeah, that's a pretty good leap there.
Is that too much of a leap? Am I missing something in there?
Did you go to school between that?
Yeah. So
that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yep. So in 2005 actually was my last. So I went to PT school in the fall of 2005. But I basically kind of had an opportunity to go back to PT school.
I forgot you weren't there for my senior year.
Yeah. So I think I went to a few games.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
No, you're good. And I was probably still helping with FCA. I don't know if you ever went to FCA when you were in high school, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So I had an opportunity to go back to PT school, went back in 2005 up at USD. So 2005, graduated in 2008, PT school, worked out at Heartland Physical Therapy from 2008 then through 2010. So went worked there until 2010. Then they went out of business. I worked for Doug Jung for a couple years at Norfolk Physical Therapy, and I didn't never really thought I would want to start my own business. But I think as it evolves a little bit, and as you do things, as you see how things are done and how things have been, and you think, I could do it better. Or I could do it different, not necessarily even just better, but I could do it different. I could do it differently based on my morals and ethics. And so that, the opportunity then came, I purchased Pierce Physical Therapy from Doug. I worked up there for a couple years and then opened up our Norfolk location. And it just, it's kind of evolved from that. So we've been open. I've had my own place for 11 years now.
So you have Pierce,
Norfolk, and then Randolph. We just opened Randolph in July.
Okay.
So, I would have never, I was scared out of my mind, like going out on my own. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about business. Probably still don't know a lot. Made more mistakes than I've made, than I'd care to admit, but you learn from your mistakes, and you learn how you want to do things and don't do things. And just the evolution of physical therapy and rehab and running an outpatient clinic in today's climate. I learned a lot. I've learned a ton. I wouldn't change anything. It's been good.
I didn't realize that was your path. I didn't know you went to Pierce and then.
Yeah. So when I was working for Heartland, they had a clinic up in Pierce, and then they went out of business. So I just sort of stayed in Pierce and worked for Doug within the Pierce clinic and a little bit in the Norfolk clinic. And I did some other contract stuff.
And I don't want to get into too much of the Heartland stuff, but
nope.
So did Doug just he went right into his.
Well, yeah, he left
practice.
Heartland. I'm trying to think of the timeline. He left Heartland. Well, Heartland's still in business, and he left and started his own.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize they were okay.
Yeah, they were. It wasn't open much. I mean, it was kind of on the downhill slide.
Yeah.
And then he opened his. And then when I left Heartland, it was just kind of a natural thing to go work with Doug. And I did that for a couple of years.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So were there any? You said you opened all those. What were some of the struggles you faced as becoming an entrepreneur, having all those practices open? Any struggles that you faced getting those off the ground?
Well, yeah, it's the Pierce one just sort of kind of continued just because I had been in Pierce for so long, and you talk about small town, and small towns appreciate when you can.
When you know the face you're going to.
You know the faces.
You already had a clientele,
They appreciate you're there and you invested in the community. I bought an old building in Pierce and I fixed it up. I mean, if you want to make people in a small town love you, take an old building on Main Street and fix it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And because, Main Street USA is dying. So, Pierce, that was kind of a natural thing. I'd say the Norfolk thing probably was the scariest just because it's been a bit saturated in Norfolk as far as PT clinics.
There's quite a few, yeah.
So initially it was just going to be a couple days a week. I would have this open when I wasn't in Pierce, but it just kind of continued to evolve. And, you live in a town for 27 years and you start to develop relationships with people and even, having kids in the school system and having been in the school system and that kind of stuff. My wife's in the school system. So I think, just making those, again, goes back to connection. So we made those connections, and that's what's, I think, made the Norfolk Clinic successful. And we've kind of branched out, done some different things. We go out to Norfolk Iron and Metal. I go out to Volcraft. So just doing some different things with some different businesses in town, you have to think a little bit differently. So that's the challenge because, the state of particularly physical therapy, there's been such an increase in administrative burden. Like it used to be, you see somebody, you file a claim with their insurance, you get paid what you get paid. Well, now it's, you see somebody, you got to get an authorization. You got to wait for the authorization. They say you can see them for 6 visits. Well, this is a rotator cuff repair, so we're going to need more than 6 visits. So it's just a constant
a
lot of red tape. And it's just, you fight hard for the dollars that you get.
Is that the healthcare industry then? Or
it's healthcare reimbursement.
So health insurance.
Yeah. Health insurance is, and that's the biggest thing. They're really holding tight to the dollar, which, it's harder, but we did it to ourselves. Particularly physical therapy. I mean, you look at physical therapy in the 80s and early 90s. I mean, they were just billing the crap out of insurance. I mean, they were cutting a fat hog big time. So kind of did it to ourselves. So, the regulation of the dollars is, it's probably justified because it's been abused. So
do you do a lot of the more different injuries, just walking off the street or regular customers, or do you do a lot more of the businesses? Because I was curious on that. Like I know Lucas or whoever will send you a bunch of people. I'm pretty good friends with Lucas. Yeah. So Do you do a lot of that for these companies to like see them first just to see if we can help them out if we have a work injury or a work issue or something?
Sure. That's again the evolution and just thinking differently. And that started, probably 4 or 5 years ago, where industrial medicine has gotten to be a bigger deal, because, and part of what I'm trying to do with different companies too is not just, hey, let's prevent injury, but hey, let's look at your workforce and make them healthier just in general.
Yeah.
Because you've got a captive audience. So if we want to talk about decreasing the cost of health insurance, let's make our population healthier. So the concept of population health is, let's figure out a way to make small changes so that we can start to not get stuck in that, what I call the medical hamster wheel, where, you look at how, so if we take an example of, we'll take an example, and this is a real world example of something that happened with an industrial client is, I visit, there's a guy, hey, the supervisor says, hey, will you talk to so-and-so? They think they did something to their shoulder. Can you just, check it out and see what you think? Absolutely. So we go and we talk, and the guy's like, I can't lift my arm. I'm like, oh gosh, okay, what happened? I don't know. I know earlier today, it's just, I didn't do anything to it. I can't lift my arm. All right, so let's take a look. Okay, first of all, calm down. Everything's gonna be. He's like, no, I'm going to the doctor at 3:00 today. Like, okay, what? Hang on, let me just check some things out. So we move it around a little bit, and yeah, it's still a little sore, but it's feeling better. And I said, do me a favor, just don't go to the doctor. Just do what I tell you to do. I'm going to give you a couple things to work on. I'm going to come back out in a couple days. We're going to recheck it. We're going to just kind of see, because he did nothing. He didn't hurt himself. He didn't push, pull, pop, nothing. Just couldn't lift his arm.
That happened to me on my back. Just literally, I was walking and just all of a sudden, I couldn't walk for 3 days basically. And then I just kind of worked it out,
right? So you go out there a couple days, and then he's moving it better, still a little sore. I'm going to give you a couple more things to do. By next week, he's fine. No problem, zero problems. So let's back that up. And let's go. Let's say he does go to the doctor at 3:00. Now, I'm going to preface this. I've got family members who are doctors. I'm good friends with a lot of doctors. Nothing against doctors at all, but that's the medical system that we live in.
Right. Yeah.
So let's say he goes to the doctor and he goes and can't lift my shoulder. Well, probably should do an x-ray.
Yeah.
Right?
X-ray, MRI.
Yeah. So let's do an x-ray. X-ray shows nothing. So the next thing, we're going to do an MRI. In the meantime, they're probably going to throw the guy in a sling because they don't want him moving it because there's probably something wrong. So he's off work for a week while I try to get an MRI approved and scheduled. So he goes and does an MRI. So the guy's over 40. So we know from research that men over 40 have about a 50% chance of having some sort of rotator cuff tear. As you age, it's just part of
already
age.
there. You're saying,
I
could see that.
Non-pathological rotator cuff tear, just from wear and tear. We have it in our knees, we have it in our spines, we just have wear and tear.
Kind of go back to your ACL. I got one replaced, the other one's empty. Eventually, the knees are going to be. It's a problem.
Sure,
it's going to happen.
Yeah. So if he had gone and he gets an MRI, if he's over 40, he's got a 50% chance that MRI is going to show that he has a rotator cuff tear. And he's been in a sling, so he's not moving his shoulder. So it really hurts to move his shoulder now. So now all of a sudden he's in for a rotator cuff repair, which is the insurance is going to pay $50,000 to $60,000 for rotator cuff repair. Plus he's off work for 12 weeks. So there's all that lost income.
Yeah.
But just calm yourself down. Oh, that was loud.
Oh, you're good.
Calm yourself down.
It's not as loud on the podcast. It won't be as loud on the podcast.
Takes the noise out.
Calm yourself down, and let's just use our heads here a little bit. And so that's a lot of what we've done with some of the industrial clients is just, now if something's serious, if something happens, obviously we're not going to sugarcoat it. It is what it is. We're going to take care of it. But a lot of these things, like your back, it's like, hey, let's give it a few days. Let's just kind of calm down. This happens all the time. And let's just get you moving a little bit.
Basically, the way I fixed mine, I did that a little bit. And then I had one day off and took a little Flexerol and just laid down, and I slept half the day. And
yeah, you better.
Like, all right, I'll work it out now. Because it was just, I had to get through that initial, like, not being able to move.
Yeah.
And don't worry, we're big proponents of not medicating before trying to figure out other problems. We are. So
Yeah.
we had Dr. Jose Nuno on here, and we talked about, we
finding other issues,
finding
ways.
finding the root of the problem.
Yeah.
Not masking.
Yeah.
With the problem.
Yeah. So he and I have worked together on a few industrial clients as well, and kind of share the same sentiment. Like, let's make people healthier.
Yeah.
Let's figure out a way to do that. And it's a challenge because that's not how society works. I mean, we want the quick fix. Yeah. We want the pills, the shots, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I also look at it as I'm curious on just talking to people and everything. I feel like the OSHA rules are a little extreme. Are they not? Do you feel that way? Or like for like OSHA recordables and stuff like that, I think are a little, it's just too extreme to me.
So I've studied, just because I've worked with so many industrial clients, I feel like I'm pretty well versed on what OSHA is and isn't. OSHA is intentionally vague.
So it seems that way to me.
Because they want to be able to write the rules when they get there. So what, and again, we're not trying to sidestep anything, but it's you can argue semantics with them. And yeah, they're extreme. You're right.
Because like the way, and I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that like if you go to a doctor and they prescribe you even just over the counter ibuprofen, say just take some ibuprofen, that counts as an OSHA recordable, like because they've prescribed it.
If they've prescribed it, so there again, you can argue
which is
semantics,
up to semantics there,
right?
Yeah.
So let's use the example of physical therapy. So if a physical therapist goes to an industrial site and Billy Bob hurt his back, and so the physical therapist takes a look, and you can do an evaluation. An evaluation,
nothing happens there.
An evaluation does not trigger an OSHA recordable. What triggers an OSHA recordable is treatment. So if Billy Bob hurts his back and I, as a physical therapist, go out and go, "Ooh, Billy Bob, I think, you did this, this, and this. I want you to do, here's a sheet of exercises. You do 3 sets of 10, this exercise 3 times a day." I've technically given him a prescription. So that would trigger a recordable.
That's so dumb.
So how do we do that?
Just give them so you don't tell them to do it. You say, "Hey, maybe we could try this."
So I don't, out at NIM, we've got the posters, right?
Yeah.
We've got posters of me doing the exercises.
Yep.
So the first thing that we say is, did you do your exercises before X, Y, and Z? The answer is always no.
Yeah. Okay? I'm going to be honest with you right now. I don't I work out there and I don't. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I
do exercise, like I stretch. Like,
but they're there.
Just
they're
randomly
there,
stretch.
And they're available, right?
Yeah.
So that's the key, is they're available and they've been introduced. They've been demonstrated, right?
Yeah.
So Billy Bob hurts his back. I'm like, "Hey, Billy Bob, let's go over that. See exercise number 3, 4, and 5? Yeah, I see those. If it were me, that's my back. I'm going to do that. How many times do I do it? Do it till it feels good. Well, how many? Well,
till it feels good.
Do it till it feels good. Today you might do some, tomorrow you might do more, so, and again, not that you're trying to sidestep it, but you're using your head.
Yeah.
Right. So
Makes sense.
the key is and that's why we do those things. That's why we go out there and say, "Hey, here's these exercises that we want you to do." Yeah, it's good prevention, but it also lays the framework for, these are exercises that you really should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you tweaked something, aches, pains, sprains, strains, whatever, this is where we're going to start if we've determined that there's no danger to you or to others.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of OSHA, right? Is to keep people safe.
I think OSHA's gone too far on
absolutely.
that type of stuff. I'm very much against a lot of OSHA. I think I'm against government regulation on basically everything.
Sure.
I'm very much cut down the red tape. It's too much. It's too far. And I think OSHA's gone too far on everything. And it's kind of one of those, I'm a big listener of Mike Rowe on the safety third thing. Like it's a big thing. Like it's just, I get it. Safety is really, but too much OSHA makes a lackadaisical workforce or whatever that just assumes everything's okay. I'm a big proponent of self-responsibility and paying attention to yourself and that type of things.
Yeah. Well, and so, some of the data, so if you look at like from industrial safety, what you want to have is a high number of your workforce going, hey, I noticed something, so I said something.
Yep.
Which is the opposite of, like you said, what OSHA has created is like, I saw something, but must be fine. Otherwise, OSHA would have said something. Well, no, use your head.
Yeah.
Like that big jagged piece of metal sticking out there.
Maybe we could fix it.
We should do something about it. So see something, say something.
Yeah.
Let's keep everybody safe. And yeah, so that's...
I can see it both ways a little bit on the OSHA thing. I'm salty on some of the OSHA stuff. I think.
And like you said, they've taken it too far, but what's the base? If you boil it down, why are they there? They're supposed to be there to keep people safe.
Yep.
Is that what they do? Oh,
I feel like they, at times, and that's a lot of America on everything, is we go to the lowest common denominator. And yeah, I get that to an extent, but
aren't they kind of looking to find people when they get there? When
OSHA, I mean,
not really the first time.
And it's kind of like a health inspector walking into a restaurant. There's going to be something. Nobody passes with 100.
No,
there's going to be something, and like you said, I think that where the problem is they're almost taking common sense out of the equation, and then you don't know how to behave.
Exactly.
If you've taken autonomy out of it and the ability to make a decision, then no one knows how to behave.
And how do you prove a soft tissue? Like, I've grown up on a farm my entire life. I work a job, a labor job, but I also work 4 or 5 other labor jobs. Like, who's to say I tweak something off of work and not off work? I mean, I'm not saying that some people are taking advantage, but how do you prove something like that? It's kind of, it's difficult that way too.
Yeah.
On the other side of it. So it's curious. It's always been something in the back of my mind. Like, I mean, soft tissue issues, that's a hard thing to prove unless it's a twisted ankle. You can see that happen, or it kind of goes back to the concussion thing too. Sure. You can't really see it every time. So,
well, Billy Bob, he hurt his back, and in talking to him, he goes, well, I scooped a bunch of landscape rock this weekend at home. Well, okay, so then you came to work, and I mean, I was hurting.
Didn't stretch before it.
I was hurting when I got here, but OSHA sees this little window, window of this is what happened. So therefore, it's recordable. So
do you have quite a few industrial, like contracts in town that you handle a lot of businesses?
We've got 4 in the area.
4?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So as far as staff, how hard was that? I mean, I think you a decent amount of staff?
We've got 10 total right now.
Spread through?
Yep, spread through the 3 clinics. So most of the administrative stuff happens in the Pierce Clinic. All our billing and that kind of stuff happens just because that's where we started.
Right.
So we have, as far as clinicians, the most of our clinicians are in Norfolk. So we have 2 PTs, 2 PTAs in Norfolk. And then a PT and a PTA in Pierce, and then just a PT in Randolph right now.
It's really cool. Was it hard to find staff? Was it a process?
It's timing. If you want a new grad, so Lane Rorick, who is the PT in our Pierce clinic, he's a Pierce kid. So, I started talking to him in February. Actually, before that, probably December of the year before he graduated, just to try to gauge his interest. Because, you have to.
Yeah.
Because most of them are making their decisions by that point.
Right.
So very rarely do you have a new grad that, April, May, they don't know what they're doing yet. They're pretty well set. So PTs are hard to find to work in a small, even in Norfolk. A lot of them want the Lincoln, Omaha stuff. Or even Kearney. So yeah, it's harder to draw them unless they're from here. And it's timing. So when you need them, you just kind of have to look ahead.
Yeah.
So with Lane, I knew that we would have a need and he would be a good fit. So
we always talk about with Norfolk, you also, obviously you're in Pierce already, but you get the surrounding towns that come to Norfolk for things like that. The hospital, the physical therapy, a lot of things. So you probably have a decent sized clientele, I'm guessing.
Yeah. We we've seen people all the way. We've had people come in from Battle Creek and then, north. We've even had some folks come in from like Albion and stuff because we do some vestibular, some balance stuff that's gone really well. But like north, Pierce, Plainview, Osmond, Randolph, Laurel, and then, east, those folks will come in from, Wisner, probably about as far as I come from the east.
This might be a weird question, but do certain physical therapy practices focus on certain things? Like obviously you can probably do everything, but do you have like something you guys specialize in, whereas maybe Doug specializes in whatever else?
Yeah, I think that we probably consider ourselves generalists. And one of the things that we have focused really, really hard on is one-on-one care. Is that when someone comes in, that you get one clinician working with you the entire time that you're there.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, and I know there's, not to bag on other clinics, but I know there's other clinics that don't do that. And it's harder to, particularly when you're looking at the administrative burden of trying to grab those dollars, but ethically, like I can lay my head on the pillow at night and go, we did it right.
Well, it's like it'd be like going to a different doctor every time you went to go to the doctor. They have no idea who you are.
Yeah, and so what? Like if you walk into our clinic, you're going to get one of our clinicians, and they're going to be with you, guiding you through your exercises from the time you walk in to the time you leave,
which is a big thing.
Absolutely, and like I said, I know there's other clinics that don't do that, but
been to some.
It'd be like if you went into the dentist. And you're and the dentist has got two chairs sitting right next to each other, and he's got one hand in each of your mouths.
Yeah,
right?
Makes sense.
That's the same thing. Or if you're in the exam room with the doctor, and you're turning your head and coughing, he's got his finger up your butt. So that's just poor healthcare, in my opinion.
I agree with you. 100%.
So we are movement specialists. We are exercise specialists. A lot of, we are very much exercise based. We'll do hands-on stuff. We'll do some manual stuff as well. But when someone's not doing an exercise the way we want, we tell them and we guide them through there. We put hands on people and, feel it the way you do it this way. Yeah. Okay. Now do it this way. Oh, okay. That's how you want me to do it. Yeah. And then when you're doing it at home, that's what you're supposed to feel. So, there's different ways of practicing physical therapy, and it's not super regulated. You can kind of do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
We learned about.
Are you technically the medical field then, or what? Is it just a whole different? Are you regulated by?
Yeah. I mean, it's the Department of Health.
Yeah. Okay.
But physical therapy is traditionally poorly self-regulated.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So, if somebody's doing something that's, illegal is one thing.
Right.
Unethical is the next.
Right.
So, if we see, a clinic where people are, double, you got 2 people or 3 people and we've had people come from other clinics and all of a sudden it's like, why are you, watching me do my exercises? I'm like, because that's what physical therapy is.
What we do.
Well, I was at the other clinic and I just walked in and, the clinician, the PT or the PTA was working with 3 people at one time. I'm like, holy crap.
Right.
So is it illegal? No.
No.
Is it unethical? I think so.
If you're charging a lot of
businesses
money.
though.
Yeah. So we don't regulate that. Like, we traditionally don't, we're not going to say anything to the Board of Regulation. It's just kind of, that's just kind of how they do it and that kind of stuff.
I've kind of felt that way. I've been to places like that. It's like, if you're not really here with me doing it, I could just do this at home.
Yep.
Why am I coming in here to pay you for this
Absolutely.
hour and a half?
Absolutely.
Why do I have to come here for this?
Yep.
I could just do it at home.
Absolutely.
That type of thing.
Yep.
Like if I want, if I need your guidance, I'd rather have your guidance than me not get it because I can just try to.
One of my favorite things that a patient will say is, "Am I doing this right?" And my answer is absolutely, because if you weren't, I would climb up your ass.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that's true. Did COVID affect you at all?
It was just a strange time.
Yeah.
I basically sent everybody home. We got the Paycheck Protection loan or grant or whatever they ended up calling it. So I sent everybody except the PTs home. So at that time, I had myself and 2 other PTs, and we did see some people in clinic for some like essential stuff. We did a lot of telehealth, which was way uncomfortable.
I was just going to ask you, did you have to do any of that?
We did do some telehealth. I struggled with that because I'm not that tech savvy, but I got better at it. And then my 2 other PTs were, quite a bit younger than me. They're like, oh yeah, this is easy. They're, doing stuff. And so it was a challenge. And it really kind of forced you to decide. And I think just every business, like what's important,
right?
What are our kind of our philosophies and how we do things, and that's where the whole one-on-one care thing comes in, because when you're doing telehealth with somebody, you are literally just you and them on the computer and the camera doing stuff.
Do you guys still do that today?
We offer it, but nobody
really uses it.
Everybody wants to come into that,
right? Which is good, I think.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if you guys still offered it.
Yep.
How rewarding is it for you to see someone's progress after coming to see you?
That's the reason. That's the why. That's why we do what we do. Particularly the stubborn ones. The ones I talked a little bit about vestibular. And so there's, you talk about being on the Ferris wheel, but there's some conditions where physical therapy is indicated for, like initial onset of vertigo. And, we had a lady that, she had been to doctors. She'd had vertigo for a couple of weeks, terrible, couldn't drive. Husband had to do everything for her. Little bit older lady, and doctor gave her all sorts of medicine. Nothing worked. Finally, the doctor says, well, let's try physical therapy. Well, what's that going to do? I can't exercise. What? He says, just call the number. So she calls, talks to Kayla, our receptionist, and Kayla is one of the sweetest people on the planet, but she is ripping her up one side and down the other. What is this? What am I supposed to do? And Kayla's doing her best to explain. And this lady's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And Kayla's like, just come in. And they came in, husband and wife sitting there, and walk in. And I go out to the waiting room and introduce myself. And the husband didn't even say hi. He says, what are you going to do for her? And I usually keep things light. And I'm like, I don't know. I said, I saw some stuff on YouTube. I thought I'd try. He wasn't having any of that, man. He was about to drag her out the door. And I'm like, let's just go take a look. So, her world's been spinning for 2 weeks. And we do it's simple. It's simple stuff. Literally, you probably can look it up on YouTube. But anyway, we do the stuff with her. And when you're doing it, it's horrible. Like the world's spinning and she's grabbing onto the table and she's cussing me. And I'm just, bear with me. When you sit up, you're going to see a huge difference. And she sat up and she's like, oh my God, like nothing's spinning. He's like, you got to be kidding. And the husband, he's like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, there you go.
Works.
So yeah, those are super fun. Those one-time things, but it's also just the people that, you take them from, either a surgery or a bad accident and just not thinking they're going to get back to anything.
Do you work with the amputees at all?
We have. Yeah, I have. I had a double amputee that I've worked with, and they're always interesting because they've got so much going on. The whole phantom pain thing that's a trip. That's just odd. But amputees, people with chronic pain, I did a 9-month continuing ed, some additional training for people in chronic pain, and that's I like that because it's a journey, and you get the absolute worst of people. I mean, people with chronic pain, I just can't imagine. It's a very, very hard road, but to take them down that road where they can kind of finally start to see some hope, that's really rewarding.
The smile on their face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Giving them their life back.
Right.
Because they're prisoners in their own body.
Do you work with all ages then?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Anywhere from, okay.
Yeah, we've done, so like a lot of the ped stuff. So like your cerebral palsy and stuff, we send those on like, out at Fountain Point, they do a lot of the ped stuff.
Type.
Yeah. Yeah. But if it's like torticollis, like, stuff, with infants, that's easy enough to teach the parents to do. And that's, you talk about the, our goal when somebody walks in, when they walk out our door, we want them to feel better. But number two, that they have the tools that if they start to backslide or this starts to become a problem again, they have the tools that they can fix it themselves. Like we want people to be able to take control of their own health. And, take back pain, for example. That's probably the prime example where when you walk out of our clinic, yeah, you're going to feel better, but you also have tools in your toolbox. Like if this flares up again, I know exactly if I do these 3-4 exercises, I'm good. And I don't have to go down that road of pills and MRIs and injections and that kind of stuff.
Right. You okay with taking a quick pause?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we're back. We all had a kind of little pee there for a second. So you guys know me about an hour in. I made it about an hour 20.
Nice job.
I know.
Yeah.
I was trying to hold it the whole time, but
I honestly was looking at my watch like, oh my God.
He's like, when's he going to stop?
Well, maybe we're going to just push through and I'm going to have to leave here in a minute.
Well, and that would be like another reason why I wouldn't, indulge tonight, because I would have lasted 15 minutes. I have got no bladder.
Yeah, an hour is about
like a little bit of water. I'm good just to kind of keep the whistle.
Yeah, there you go.
But if I start drinking a bunch of water and then you throw alcohol or anything in there, and I'm like, nope.
The river's just flowing.
I'm just going to go right here.
I thought about just getting catheters set up for everybody.
Might as well just do that.
I think it would be hilarious on your podcast, like if you had the sound like somebody peeing on the floor.
That would be funny.
Like, yeah, we were going to pause, but just hang on. And then cue that sound like
much better.
He could have played that last night when I got, this is the first time ever I've done this. I got up during the recording.
I was about to do it. Honestly.
I got up during the recording and just left the room. I'm like, I hope you got this because I got to go. He could have just played the sound then. That'd have been funny.
That'd have been really good.
That's awesome.
But kind of going back to balance is a big word on this podcast that we talk about a lot.
Yep.
Tell me a little, and we haven't talked about your family a whole lot, but tell me a little bit how you balanced family, work, and life. And does your wife play a big role in being able to balance all that?
Yeah. And so even kind of tying it into what you talked about, how I got to where I'm at. And I enjoyed athletic training. I enjoyed the being around athletes and the competition stuff, but it is just not family friendly. So, when I was the athletic trainer at the high school here, I would start work, about 1:00. So before my kids went to school or got into school, I could spend the morning with them and then take them to daycare. And then, I would see them at night or, they grew up in gyms and stuff like that. So that was a big driver, probably the driver to going back to PT school is I want to have kind of normal hours and not weekends and stuff like that. So that was a big driver. And as a business owner, it's impossible to walk out of the building and not take it home with you. Right.
Yep.
So you're constantly trying to balance that. Like I don't want to be, a PT, CEO, whatever at home. I want to be a husband and a dad. So I think it's a very conscious effort to do that. And you have to be deliberate about it and you have to carve out that time. And, Angie does a good job of kind of reeling me in like, we probably let's not do something sometime so we can just do family stuff.
Yeah.
So that's been important.
It's good. It's communication. We talk about that too a lot.
Oh, 100%. And we talk about that, Angie and I talk about that in our marriage, talk about that with our kids. Over 90% of conflict boils down to miscommunication, lack of communication, poor communication, not hearing what is really being said or done, that kind of stuff.
Did you go through a time period where you had to think about putting, work away when you got home, or was it just you were able to do it?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think it still happens. If you're trying to balance things, or schedules happen, or you get a text in the morning and or at night somebody's sick, or we got to shuffle a schedule. So you're on, right? So you got to take care of it. But just as quick as you do that, you have to be able to turn it off and return back to. For me, I mean, my kryptonite still, I'm trying to be better at is my phone. Just not.
That's everybody.
Not. And now it's on my wrist, so I get the notifications and all that stuff. So it's just, there's got to be a better way to do that. I think I'm getting better at it, but again, there's again a communication thing. Like Angie would be like, "Yeah, you were on your phone a lot when so and so was trying to talk to you." I'm like, I hate that about myself. Like, I hate that my wrist buzzed and I had to look down. You guys know who Simon Sinek is?
The name sounds really familiar.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of his speeches.
So he's written a lot of leadership books and stuff like that. But he was on a might have been a podcast, but he just basically just threw everybody under the bus. Like,
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I've heard this.
Yeah.
This
So
speech,
he's like, when you think you can engage with other people when that's in your hand, but you can't.
Right.
Because when that buzzes, what's your first reaction? You're looking down.
Yep.
Even if it's inconsequential and you're like, oh, that's no big deal. And then you put it down and you think you've really done something great. Well, no, you've interrupted.
You've already stopped your.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is something that I'm working on, just being more intentional. So I try to have a word every year. So my word for 23 was intentional. Worked on it. And I always kind of try to do a review then the first part of the next year. Like, okay, what does that mean? I'm a Christian. I believe and my relationship with God is first and foremost. So I believe that he gives me those words for a purpose.
Yeah.
So when I can sit back and review, like, okay, God, at the first part of the year, this is the word that I felt like he gave me. Now reviewing 23, how did that fit in? What did that work? And what does 24 look like? So still don't have a word for 24.
You got time still.
I figure, it happens when it does.
I just filled out some paperwork today and put 23 on it. So, and then I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, I saw somebody else writing 24 they were typing something up and said 24. I was like, shit. It is 24 now.
In my business, I've already wrote it like 50 times. So it doesn't, I have to learn really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you make that mistake, that's a critical error.
Yeah, very critical. Yeah. Very effective dates can't be, very critical error.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to the balance a little bit and the phones, like putting phones away. Did your wife push you? Was she fully behind you in starting your own? Was it a conversation? Was there reservations?
I think that she's supportive, bottom line.
Yeah.
I think she gets annoyed with entrepreneurial ventures.
Mine does too.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
So the crazy thing is, like, you have that fear of like opening things up or doing things. But once you do that and it's successful, it's like a drug.
It is.
You want to try to find the next thing.
Yep.
And I've done some things that are pretty good and I've done some things that have flopped. And it's all learning. You probably learn more from the things that flop than from the successes.
The mistakes is where you learn. Yeah.
That's right. So she's patient. She probably,
that's a good word.
Yeah. Yeah. And always supportive. She just, she's awesome. even if she isn't like fully like on board, she fakes it well.
To you, she's going to say no, but out in public, no, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good partner to have in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was the same thing with the podcast. Yeah, with my wife. Even with you. He didn't want to do it at first.
I wanted to do it. I just wasn't going to pull the trigger. I was just going to keep talking about it.
We tell the story all the time, but I just bought the stuff and told them it was here.
Yeah, he just
didn't even tell them I ordered it.
It's when are we going to do our first episode? I was like, what? It's like, yeah, I got it. It's here. It's like, oh, okay.
I guess we're in.
I guess now we're stuck.
The wife has played a big role though. To I'm obviously here late at night a lot and all work during the day. So it's I patience.
Yeah. She's very patient.
Supportive.
She's super supportive.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for anyone maybe trying to get into this industry?
Well, that's a good question. I think that you, diversity in kind of what you're offering, particularly and I think that's it can be geographically specific. So in Northeast Nebraska, if you want to do this here, you have to be good at lots of things. I think you have to, your principles, your morals, and your ethics have to be solid, but you can build that all on that. So, I kind of harped on this, the one-on-one thing. So whether we're seeing an infant or an elderly person, they're going to get the same level of care. So, somebody is wanting to get into it. I think that one of the main things is just trying to, don't pigeonhole yourself. Learn as much as you can about lots of different things. And then you can kind of pick and choose, like, hey, I'm good at X, Y, and Z. The other thing that I think that has gone well for me is surrounding myself with really, really good people and people who think that same way. Like I don't know the answer, or I'm going to find the answer. Being a lifelong learner, that's really critical. So when I got out of PT school and I started working for Heartland, that was it. I was going to work with athletes at Heartland Physical Therapy. Well, things changed and I needed to figure something else out quickly. And so I actually I did a traveler position at a nursing home. I had not worked in a nursing home ever. So it's like,
big change.
Absolutely. So, but it was super valuable because I gained a skill set and I gained some knowledge of how nursing homes work. Yeah, absolutely. And how the business of nursing homes work and how the documentation is different, those kind of things. So it was valuable, is mildly painful, just because you saw something that you thought you were going to do for a long, long time change. So you have to be adaptable and don't just say, well, this is where I'm going to work. This is what I'm going to do. You got to be able to pivot.
Pivot. Yeah. Good old Friends reference there. Pivot.
Pivot.
We're going to get political now.
Okay.
I got a quick question before we go in there. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to go back to your business on the entrepreneurial side. So when you're hiring somebody and it's kind of go along with him when you're giving advice to younger people, are you looking to pass that on? Are you looking for people that are, like you say, always learning, that maybe they want to eventually take their own practice, or do you selfishly want to keep them just to yourself? Or are you trying to impart that knowledge of maybe in the future opening their own practice, or building upon going somewhere? And
it's a good question. And there's been an evolution there. So initially when hiring, it's like, I need somebody to do a good job for me right now. But I'm 51 now, so you got to start looking at the end game, and you start looking at, okay, does somebody want this practice, or does somebody want to go on and do some? And I'm good with either. We've started to talk about succession planning and things like that with people that we have on our team. And that was, partially the intention in hiring them, is like, hey, this is going to transition at some point. If you're interested, this is kind of where we're at. But I think that, initially you're
You want somebody to show up.
Somebody show up and do a good job and do things the way I want them done, and catch the vision of what we're doing. And so if you get that person, then I think the evolution also kind of grows with them as well. They might go, well, I was going to work here a couple of years and then go on somewhere else, but I see this as a place where I can grow and evolve and maybe be part of this for a long, long time. So and that's one of the things I've talked to just about I talk to everybody that I hire is I don't want this to be, the old Dave Ramsey reference. I want this to be just a job. Yeah. Like, I don't want you to show up, punch clock, do your thing and leave. Like, be invested in what we're doing.
Take ownership, basically.
Absolutely. So
we hear that a lot, actually, on most of the people that have owned a business or own a business.
That's kind of why I wanted to bring it up, just like on the entrepreneurial side, because we've been kind of pushing that a lot.
Yeah.
Like that. I'm not really entrepreneur, kind of not really.
You come from an entrepreneurial family, though.
Obviously I have a job, but yeah, we like to push that. Like, it's just go out there and try it. And I know, it takes people like you and other people that have started businesses to help impart that knowledge, and especially in your field. If somebody's already in your field, I was just curious what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah.
So
I do think surrounding your people with like-minded people that have the same values is very, very, like, almost the most important piece of building a business.
Absolutely.
It really comes down to that. That's really you're going to fail if you don't have like-minded people, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Was there anything else you wanted to add?
I just wanted to go back to that real quick.
Okay.
So we're good to.
There you go.
Go
Political.
Sure.
Going to the fun stuff.
Sure.
With an election year coming up, how do you feel about where the state of our country is right now? And do you feel that we are being well represented at the federal and state levels?
Yeah, I don't like where we're going. Part of it, and this is, I just think that we're just so divided. And I listen to, I'm around elderly people a lot, in the clinic and nursing homes.
So
and
you
stuff
probably
like
pick up a lot.
Yeah. And, there's just sort of this, they're just kind of brokenhearted, like that we've gotten to this point. And yeah, I mean, things have been political for a long time, but there's just so much division, and that division really, there's that trickle down effect. So, division at fish rots at the head, right? So as we're not worried so much about, am I doing my best for the people that I'm representing, has turned into, well, at least I'm not jackwad over there. That would, or they're terrible. I'm not, vote for me.
Right.
So I don't like kind of the direction that we're going, just because I think there's just so much division. And
where do you think the division came from?
Well, I mean, I think Trump had a lot to do with it. I mean, so it goes back to, I feel like the nuts and bolts of Trump and how he, the programs he started and the shape, the fiscal shape of our country, good, right? I mean, I saw that as a business,
right?
Saw that personally.
It was the best 3 years of my lifetime.
Yeah,
fiscally.
Yeah,
I mean, just
absolutely.
By
and
far.
from a business perspective, things were great.
3.5. As soon as COVID hit, everything changed.
Yeah, I think where that could have gone better is just if he would have dialed down the ego a bit. And I know people are like, mean tweets, stuff like that. I just think, and maybe I'm just too soft, but
I don't think so.
Just be kind. Just there's something you can absolutely disagree with somebody, but just be kind. And I think that's kind of where it started, and it's just a lot easier now.
Yeah.
And part of that is just it's a personal journey for me too. Our oldest daughter passed away in February, and she was just the kindest person. She was the most apolitical person on the planet. She probably knew who the president was, but didn't care if they were Democrat or Republican.
Right.
her mission in life was to make sure people feel seen and feel heard. So, you know, I've gotten that probably softened me quite a bit, just because what's it for?
Yeah.
Like if I have to stand up and pound a table and scream that I'm right, what's it for? But if I can make somebody feel like they're important and that what she did exceptionally well. So just if you fly a lot, just try this sometimes. Go to Starbucks, get yourself some $5 gift cards to Starbucks. And when you sit down and your stewardess or your airline, your attendant comes by, give them a $5 Starbucks gift card.
I've done that.
It is like you've given them $1 million.
Yep.
Because no one thinks about them. She did that on every flight that she was on.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And if you were the worst waitress in the world, if you were the checkout person that couldn't get it right, those are the people that get yelled at. Right. And that's what I'm talking about. That's where we've gotten as a country. It's like our knee-jerk reactions to yell at these people and call them names, where she just didn't do that. It's like, you're fine. You're doing fine. And she would call, if you had a name tag on, she'd call you by name. So I learned that whether we're Democrat, Republican, whether we hate people or whatever, choose kindness. Just try to, and I think we have, that's the thing is, I think we have more common ground than we really understand or know.
I talk about that a lot. I didn't know if you wanted to get into any of that.
Oh no,
so I didn't bring it up.
No.
I didn't know how it was going to go. Do you want to discuss any of that?
Oh, I'm like I told you, Zach, I'm an open book.
I know. I didn't know I didn't know for sure.
Yep.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what happened?
Yeah. So she had a medical condition that's it's called limited GPA, which we joked about because she hated school. But it's a form of what's called vasculitis. So basically, what was happening is her trachea kept closing, and she had a couple procedures to open them, and she was on some medicine, and we thought everything was good. And then, so February 11th of last year, she had a cold the week before, and she was supposed to come out on the 15th of February, and so she had a cold, and we're like, hey, you don't sound very good. You probably better get in. And she was going to go to the doctor that next week before she came out here, and her husband called on the so it'd been the early morning of February 11th, and he was screaming and said that she just wasn't breathing, and we think she passed away in her sleep.
Right.
So that's our hope prayer, I guess. So yeah, I mean, something you don't think you would ever go through in a million years, and here we are.
That's like my biggest fear.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's, you know, so many, I've had dreams where, you know, someone that you love dies, right? Then you wake up and you're so relieved.
Right.
We just didn't wake up.
You didn't wake up.
Yeah. So it's, definitely been a challenge. But, you know, it's a choice. You know, you choose how you grieve, and you choose how you move on. And we've chosen to say, God's the same God today that was on February 10th.
Right.
He didn't change. He didn't take her. He didn't do this. We know where she is. My goal is to get there too. So that's on a daily basis, I think about her. And that's where that I can choose to be kind.
Yeah.
I can make small choices that honor her, that help me to live the way I believe God intends us to live, and just to be kind to one another, regardless of whether I agree with you politically. And, you know, I don't think it makes you a doormat. I don't think it makes you like, oh, you're just a pushover and you'll believe anything. No, I really truly believe that just choosing kindness and being kind to one another and seeing people. There's so many people who just aren't seen. And so that's our mission. That's our goal. And that's what we've chosen to do. And it's a choice, so that, you know, the next morning, my wife and I couldn't sleep. So we go for a walk 4:00 in the morning, and we said, we have a choice now. We have a choice of because we've lived in this community for 27 years, and people see how you grieve.
Right.
And so that's how we've chosen to do it. That's what we've chosen to do. It's not easy. It's the most horrible thing I could ever think of going through.
Right.
And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But that's what we've chosen to do. In August, my oldest brother died of a heart attack.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of the healthiest, strongest guys I have ever known, 64 years old, just died. And my other brother and I were talking. He's like, I don't know how you're still standing. Your daughter died. Now your brother died. I said, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice of these things that happen to you. If you had your choice, it wouldn't happen.
Right.
But you have a choice how you react.
Right.
So
it takes internal fortitude.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
So it's literally, some days it's just breathe in, breathe out. Take the next step.
Right.
It's absolutely exhausting. You talk about brain fog. I mean, you go through a lot of days of just, man, I can't think of the word. And I can't think of so-and-so's name. And it's frustrating because I kind of pride myself in being able to remember people and remember those kinds of things. But it's frustrating. It's exhausting. But again, we know, we believe that she's in heaven. Yeah. Yep. And we know who wins. We know that death is not from God. This is not something God created. And we know where she's at. And our mission is to get there and take as many people with us as we can.
Do you think that the cold had something, or whatever she was going through had something to do with it?
Yeah, I think so. The coroner's report or whatever said it was a mucus plug or tracheal stenosis. So we had no idea. We had no idea it was as serious as it was.
Right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
We were concerned because she had a cold.
Right.
But to have this happen was just,
it's tough.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable.
You like you said, you're taking it very well. So
there's days.
I'm sure.
I didn't know that, and that's I would have thought that.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
I am more than happy to, and it's because of, I think when you lose a loved one, your biggest fear is that they're forgotten.
Right.
So this is and anytime we have an opportunity to talk about her or talk about my brother, whoever, it's an opportunity for their legacy to live on.
I like that.
And
philosophy.
Isn't that what we want, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you weren't here tomorrow, Zach, you want people to come on a podcast and talk about Zach.
Right.
Talk about the impact that he had in my life. So that's our way of honoring her and her life and what she stood for. She's got beautiful baby daughter, 2-year-old hellion. She's just crazy. And her husband, Logan, he's rocking it. He's a single dad. He didn't think any of this would ever happen either.
Right.
So you get put in these situations. So you have a choice. How do you move forward? So that's what we've chosen.
I like that philosophy though, because we do the same thing. My uncle passed away. It's been 2 summers ago now. Suddenly, just happened out of the blue, and we try to bring him up every now and then. We're playing cards, or it was just this Christmas. We were playing with the deck of cards that we had got from him, and me and my dad were winning, or my wife and my mother were winning the pitch game, and I'm like, "Oh, Gary just wanted you guys to win, apparently." And then the whole tides turned, and my dad and I ended up winning. I'm like, "Oh, thanks, Gary." It's like we try to bring him up, and I like that a lot. Yeah,
yeah. And that's that's what you want, right? You want what you've done here to matter, and she had lots of different jobs. She, the last job that she has was kind of what she was kind of put on this earth for. She worked for a real estate company, and she was kind of their quote unquote hype girl. So she would just, their employees, she would send them packages and just, that was in her wheelhouse. She just really had the ability to bring out the best in people. So, why not carry that along? So
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. Seriously, try that Starbucks gift card thing though. It's pretty amazing.
I've only done it once, but it made their day.
Yeah, it's crazy how just it's $5,
yeah.
but Nobody
or even
does it.
sometimes I'll buy like the cooks in the kitchen a beer at the end of the shift. I've done that before too. That's a huge thing too.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's just the little things that don't normally get done.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah. Well, the world is busy.
Yeah.
And we all kind of have this tunnel vision of what we're doing. And I think when we're able to kind of step out of ourselves and just see other people and go, okay, that's that's what I want to do. I want to make them feel seen and cared about.
Right.
Yep.
I feel like we talk about it a lot that the world's smaller, but it feels like everybody's got to get back to just shrinking down to your community. And it goes, and we talk about it a lot, like the people in your community, your family first, and then branch out to your friends, and then your community. And you get a bigger fulfillment if your world gets smaller, I think, and your circle gets smaller. And then you can also make that, like you talked about, with your strangers you meet or whatever. But that camaraderie in your own community helps build a better soul to me. Yeah. It feels like.
And that is what one of the things that we've, through this experience, have that's kind of come to light for us is just Norfolk as a community and just our friends and family outside of it, but just people who come alongside you and just, how are you doing? Or, hey, praying for you, that kind of stuff. That is exactly what that is. It's people reaching outside of themselves and going, I want to make sure they're okay.
That's kind of what we're trying to do with this podcast too, is bring things to a smaller level in the long form podcast where people can get to know you. Maybe there's probably plenty of people that don't know who you are.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think you're an amazing guy.
Oh, thanks.
Vance, you've known him before, but
I've known him. I've learned more about you today than I ever knew. And
that's what he loves doing these, because a lot of the people
selfish.
I've known. Yeah,
I'm super selfish on this podcast because even the people that I know, it's like I just want to learn more. Like I love this podcast because I get to ask the questions, or he gets to ask the questions, and I enjoy listening. I've always loved long form podcasts. I love listening to them because I learn more about people. And now I get to say, hey, this is the question that should have been asked right here.
Yeah.
And I get asked that question. We're super selfish about it, and I get it. But
yeah, no,
I love it.
That's
I
awesome.
it.
And what a cool medium. What a cool thing to do.
We're trying. We're hoping to get a little bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yep.
This is going to take another diversion. So we went political, and then we went sentimental, and now we're going to go back political.
Sure.
Do you feel that the two-party systems that are in place still work in today's time? Now it's going to go back to the division. So explain.
I don't know. I probably don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it.
That's okay.
Well,
I can give you my take, and then you can go off of that if you want some time to think.
Well, I guess my initial reaction is the way as it was created. I don't think it's functioning as it was created.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So
that's basically 100% my thoughts on it.
Yep.
Yeah. So
you just put it into a little ball right there, and it works.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I look back at, was this country created perfectly? No. But we've gone so far away from, I think, what the intention was that I'm not sure how we reel this thing back in.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out on this on both podcasts.
This is coming from the guy that's kind. Like you're supposed to give me all the optimism.
You were supposed to enlighten us. Yeah.
The last segment we just had, I was like, yes, this guy's gonna give me all the optimism. I'm a little black pilled over here. I'm pessimist.
Yeah. I just think. Yeah, I guess bottom line, I think that as it's not functioning as it was intended to function, and one of the probably the most telling thing was when I heard Tom Osborne speak after spending his time in Congress, and he came back and we're actually at an FCA event, and he just basically said, an honest person can't get anything done in Washington.
And you can see that. It's very, very evident.
And yeah, so I don't think it works. I don't know what the solution
is.
And
it goes back to the division you said. I don't like how whether you're left or right, they're fighting each other during some of these debates, and they don't actually talk about the real topics that are at hand.
Yeah.
So we never know who we're, fully voting for at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We're just whoever bashed the other person the worst or the best or whatever you want to call it. And that's just not the way things should be ran.
Yeah.
So
I kind of beat the drum going to your Tom Osborne comment, going to Washington. That's my fear of anybody going to Washington, that Washington is going to corrupt you, in my opinion. It takes a really strong person to not get corrupted or to already have the wealth. I am a fan of electing the people that can't be bought and type of thing. But my way of reeling that in, I kind of beat this drum really hardly, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is just shrinking your community. Starts here. It starts at our home. It starts at our town. It starts at our county, and then it goes to our state and stuff like that, because we can change that. I mean, we can vote the right people, and it's way harder to get corrupted when you're in front of the people that you're representing. You know what I mean? Like, if you have to come speak to me every time and look me in the eye, it's a lot harder for you to lie about it. And it's a lot harder for you to, be on the dole or whatever the version is.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a way, in my opinion. And a lot of local is not really partisan, and it kind of goes back to that.
Yeah.
I do like like you talked about, the way the two-party, and I've said it a lot, was envisioned, was you have to have a little bit of a cohesion or a little bit of an argument, a push and pull. And I think it's been, like you said, it's been corrupted, or it's been diluted way too much.
Yeah.
So,
well, my vision on, my opinion on politics was formed when I was I think I was a senior in high school. And in South Dakota, where I grew up, you could apply to go be a legislative page. You would do 2 weeks. So you would go, you'd be a page for a week, then you come home for the weekend, then you go be a page for another week.
I think they have a version of that here in Nebraska, but I don't know if it's a 2-week thing.
Okay. But you would have to be sponsored by so like I was sponsored by my local representative, or
your legislator there.
Yep. So I was in the House of Representatives. And so I was sponsored by my representative, and it was tradition that whoever sponsored you would take you out to dinner when you're towards the end of your 2 weeks. So we went to, it was South Dakota Cattlemen's Association ball or a dinner or something. It wasn't a ball. It was a dinner. So I got invited to that. And I'm sitting at the table with the representative, and we're just, I'm trying to not be a high school kid, trying to sound semi-intelligent. I really had no idea what I was talking about. But I see this guy come over, big, like, picture a big, like, rancher dude, the suit with the friggin', patches on it. He comes over and goes over to the representative, shakes his hand like that. And I see my representative go like this, grab his, and he gave him something.
Oh,
I'm like, what is going? This is South Dakota.
Right.
Come on now. And he walked out of there. He had this huge cooler full of steaks. He had this bronze, a statue of a bull. And I'm like, this is just a game.
Yep.
And they're just lining his pockets. That's it.
Yep. We just talked about that. I think, didn't Danny call it a game? It's just a game of back and forth, and who can play the game better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And from then on, that's where, like, that's
a really tough thing to see at that age.
Yeah.
Probably.
And just disappointed.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know how that would be. That would be, disappointing and that defeated.
No, obviously, it wasn't a hero situation, but that'd be like seeing your hero be an unethical piece of shit.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. Right.
Probably, yeah.
How do we beat that? Like that's what's going through your mind. It's like how are we going to beat the game? Like, if this is the game, if it's already this way,
so
like, how do we?
And then as a person, and I have zero. Well, I shouldn't say that. I would have no desire to put myself in that situation, or why would you put yourself in a situation where
you're owned?
Right.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I've never understood that.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. I'd feel. How do you sleep? It just kind of goes back to how do you sleep? How do you get?
Yeah.
It'd be tough.
Yeah.
That's our whole goal here. Our whole goal is to not ever be owned or owe anybody anything.
I won't apologize for my thoughts. My thoughts are my thoughts alone. I'm going to say some shit that's probably wrong, and it is what it is.
Obviously, we want this to make money at some point, but we're going to do it on our own terms.
Yeah, right.
Type of thing.
Yeah. And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
It's the whole whoever makes the golden rule, whoever has the gold makes the rule. So why other than knowing that there's financial gain to be had, it's hard to trust people who say, okay, well, I'm running for X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And I think it's unfortunately kind of getting to the point where on the local level, it's becoming a little bit that way too. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of distrust, which is discouraging.
There's probably more distrust up front nowadays than there is trust, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Through any voting position.
A lot of people,
local up to federal.
A lot of people have a hard time trusting people that they're in it for the real. And I've been around the people that have. I've been around people that have done it for the good, and they've risked everything to do it, and still get treated like shit. Like, and so it's like, why do it? Why even? And it's frustrating because everybody. I mean, the people that I know that have done stuff like that and still been treated bad. All they want is the betterment. They want to make good. So why? And then they're in a group with the same people that are just in there to, like you said, line your pockets and get rich or find a gain, some sort of gain, somehow gain, jumping stone or stepping stone or something.
Yep.
It's like, well, there's some people out there that really want to put in service, and we need to not discourage people from doing that. And that's where you got to, and we're talking, you got to find that, you got to toe the line, you got to tiptoe to, you got to, you have to keep your head on a swivel. You have to be paying attention. You have to be of good moral and ethical character, and you got to be able to know right from wrong. Yeah. But yet you don't want to scare everybody away from, hey, you're gonna get treated like shit. People are gonna think you're whatever, but you just gotta. I've always looked at it as I answer to a higher power. Is the way I feel. So, but it takes a lot, and then, I mean, you gotta try.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I was talking to an older guy up in Pierce, guy that I've known for a long time, respect him, and we were talking about just politics and stuff, and he just says that the way he was raised is that you respect somebody that has gotten elected. And if you want to change it, vote differently or make a change.
Right.
But until that time, you don't disrespect the office. You don't disrespect them. It's just how he was raised. Said, like, that's my congressman.
I still try to feel that way. I really try very hard to not disrespect certain offices.
Yeah.
But it becomes harder and harder.
Oh, it's
difficult
because the office itself has become corrupt at times.
Right.
So, and again, so then there's the personal part, and then there's the part of the office, and you're like, both of these things are a freaking train wreck.
Yeah. Well, I digress off of that. Where do you see yourself going in the future? Do you see yourself
Uh,
are you enjoying where you are? Do you see yourself staying in Nebraska?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that. I'm like crabbier and crabbier every winter.
Oh, I hate winter.
Yeah,
I told him we started our podcast in October. I said I'm done with winter. Like winter hadn't even hit yet.
Yeah,
I was already done.
winter didn't hit here till like December 25th. For crying out loud.
I was done September 1st.
Yeah.
Jeez, we had a great fall for crying out loud.
Right.
I don't like fall either. Give
I
me
love
summer.
fall.
So I mean, for now, we'll stick around. I don't know, if you enjoy what you do, you don't work a day in your life. So I'm good to work. However, like I said, we've got a succession plan, and we'll kind of see how that shakes out. I think Nebraska, in some way, shape, or form, will be our home. So
Maybe a little bluebird or
snowbird. I think I don't play the lottery, but if I did and I won, I would never see another snowflake as long as I live. But so our middle child, Carson, is he's getting married in May, and his fiance is from Norfolk, and she's going to med school at down in Omaha in the fall. So I think they'll probably end up in the area. So for that reason, my wife has this thing for grandbabies.
Yeah, it's gonna keep you here.
So I think that'll at least keep us here. And I like it. I like Norfolk. I like the community.
Yeah.
I think we've done.
I would hope so after 27 years anyway.
Yeah. I'm just either that I'm too lazy to move. But I just trying to maintain some simplicity. And I do, if anything, I feel like that might be my word for 24 is either simplicity or stability or something. just really just trying to, appreciate what we have and what we've done, family, business, church, community, that kind of stuff. And just, appreciate that a little bit more. And I think everybody's got a little burr in their saddle for, the situations they might be in or where they're at geographically, but, we're happy here. And we're close enough to both of our families that we can get to them quickly. If we need to go out and see our granddaughter out in Virginia, we can jump on a plane and be out there quickly. I would like to be somewhere. Go ahead.
So I was just going back to that. Is he from Virginia?
So our son-in-law, Logan, he's in the military and he's stationed out in Virginia. So they're living out there. Okay. His parents live in South Carolina.
Oh, so he's from the east.
He's from Norfolk originally. So his dad was the GM out at Volcraft for a lot of years. And then he moved on with Nucor and stuff. So they live in South Carolina. But so yeah, we can be out there quickly. But about this time, like today, God, it was so cold today.
Right. Oh, it was miserable.
I'm like
today.
outside. I'm like, why do we live here? This is dumb. So I
try having cattle in that.
Oh, we have. Yeah, I grew up on a farm.
Well,
yeah,
that's probably why I hate cattle or hate winter the most. It's just because it doesn't matter. It could snow 18 inches.
Yeah.
And you're outside.
The cows don't care.
Yeah,
they're hungry.
They're out there.
Yeah,
You better get out there. You better chip ice.
Exactly.
Pitch ice.
Yeah,
make sure there's water.
And that's when the bad stuff happens.
Every time.
Why does the water quit now?
That's funny.
So I think at some point, my wife's got a few years left. She's a principal at Lincoln Montessori, and she's got a few years left, and she might look at retirement. But I don't know. We'll see.
Is there any other ventures you kind of said you had some ideas, you like to kind of do some other things? Anything outside of physical therapy that you're kind of wanting to?
Oh gosh, I've gone back. You ever have days when you're just frustrated and you're like, I'm gonna do something else. I always thought I could train dogs.
Oh, yeah?
Why do I
come train my dog?
Yeah, why do I think I can do that? I'm a fairly patient person, but once my patience snaps, I'm done. So I think that's a horrid idea.
You never know until you try.
Right.
Yeah. Be the next dog whisperer.
Yeah.
What's that? Caesar
Caesar,
something?
Yeah, Caesar.
Is that the
Caesar?
snapping guy?
What's his name?
Caesar Milan.
Milan. That's right. Yeah. I grew up on a farm, and the farming life, if it wasn't so fiscally volatile, I always thought that was
fun. Yeah.
You know,
It's freeing.
There's some peace there.
It's
I mean,
I get out in a pasture in the summer, spraying pasture, or even fixing fence or whatever, and you're just by yourself out in nature. It is a freeing aspect. I do enjoy that part of it.
So my brother just passed away in August. He ran our family farm up in South Dakota. So, you know, all the cows are sold now, and we'll rent everything out to somebody else at this point. But, you know, he always thought, you know, if money wasn't an issue, that farming life it's okay.
Right.
My brother was always like, I'd say, can I come up and disc? Just let me come up and disc. He's like, why do you want a disc? I said, that is so peaceful.
Right.
You go just flip the radio on, got the local country station.
He's probably like, there's so many more things I can do than sit in a damn tractor.
Yeah.
And you're like, let me sit in the tractor. Let's go.
Yeah. I'll leave my phone in the house and I'll just go disc for a couple days. And it's just heaven.
Right.
Or go help with harvest or, you know, work cows, whatever. So I don't think, I mean, I would never do that, but I don't see myself doing anything other than physical therapy. And I don't see myself doing anything other than own a business. It's that entrepreneurial.
Once you do it, you can't really go back.
Right. You just, it's in your blood a little bit. So
yeah, I agree. Well, John, if you got nothing else, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks so much for having me. Good luck with the podcast. This is awesome.
I'm glad you appreciated it. It was fun having you on. We learned a lot.
Yeah, it was a good time. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks, John.
Take care.